Scary Parent Moments and What You Can Learn From Them, episode 269. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and I'm back. You might not have realized that I left, but we've been doing replays on Tuesdays, and the reason we've been doing that is because I have been preoccupied, to say the least, and the interviews we had batched up. So we had a ton of interviews batched up, but the solo episodes, I like to record them, or at least historically, I had liked to record them really off the cuff, right before they're supposed to go live, because there's always new inputs. There's things going on in the world, things going on in my life, things going on around me, and coaching calls, what my clients are experiencing, and those are things that I want to bring in when they are hot, when they're relevant. So I've historically not done a lot of advanced batching of our solo episodes. Now that's probably going to change because I don't want to leave you hanging for so long again in the future. So we'll see what happens with that. But you may have noticed that I was missing, and I'm going to share with you what's been going on in my life. It's exciting. It was scary, and it's really the title of this episode. It's quite the story. Maybe near-death experiences. We'll let you be the judge of that. So stick around because I'm going to go through that with you, and I'm going to tell you something that came out of it for my business and some lessons that I think that all of us can learn from my experience. So we're going to dive into that today. I am going to share that in just a moment. But before that, I need to share with you a bunch of exciting things. First of all, we have put together a 4-day, 1 hour, 1.5 hour per day commitment event, absolutely free, all about planning your best year ever. So we're leading into, if you're listening to this later, this episode is releasing in December of 2021, and we are leading into the new year. And when the new year arrives, everyone wants to get a fresh start, and it's a great opportunity to hit the reset switch. So what's working? What's working in marketing? What are the tactics you need to be doing to close more sales? What are the things you need to be doing to build your team? So I'm super excited to share with you that I have brought in experts. I've brought in marketing experts. I've brought in sales experts. I've brought in team development experts. And I'm going to be doing a special session on the 4th day, all about putting it all together and formulating a plan for your best year ever in 2022. So if you want to get access to this absolutely free experience, I'd love to have you there. All you got to do is go to profitwithlaw.com/annual planning, profitwithlaw.com/annual planning. And we also will link this up in the show notes. So if you're in your podcast player, you might be able to just scroll down, click the link, or you can go to the show notes page for this episode at profitwithlaw.com/269, profitwithlaw.com/269. And all of the links that I'm going to share with you will be there on that page. So that is exciting thing number 1. Now, exciting thing number 2 is we have opened up some slots for our coaches to do some free coaching sessions. Now, let me tell you a little bit about these and why you would want to experience it. So basically, This is intended for somebody who maybe you feel stuck, you feel lost. Another year has gone by and you haven't made the progress that you wanted in your law firm, and you can't figure out why. You're doing all the things. You're putting efforts in for marketing. You're bringing in new clients. You're doing the work. You're working the work. And at the end of the day, you just don't have much to show for it financially or the time availability that you have. You thought you'd be further along in your journey than you are. And quite frankly, you're stressed out. Now, who wants to be stressed out? Nobody does. That's not why you started your law firm. So what if I could tell you that my coaches will have a conversation with you and help you hone in on what is it that's keeping you from getting to where you want to go? They can help you create a crystal clear vision for your ultimate law firm success and the perfect lifestyle that you want your firm to provide for you. You don't have to be working 60, 80 hours a week. Even if it's 40 hours a week, you don't have to be doing that. You can choose to work the way that you want to work. One of my clients in our elite lawyer coaching program, her objective is to shut down at 2:30 in the afternoon. I think it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so that she could be with her kids in the afternoon and only work a few days a week, not 5 days a week. So how can you create that lifestyle? How can you create this opportunity for you to only work when you want to work and yet still have it not impact your income? And what my coaches are going to do is going to help you figure out what that is and help you uncover the hidden challenges that might be sabotaging the growth of your firm and keeping you in this mode of working too many hours. And when you leave the session, and everybody leaves the session this way, feeling renewed, re-energized, and inspired to turn your firm into a highly profitable revenue-generating machine that practically runs itself. You can have this coaching session absolutely free if you want. Now, at the end of it, they will offer you the opportunity to join me for 18 months in our elite lawyer coaching program. You absolutely do not have to take that offer. There is no commitment, but if you want to take your business to that next level, if you want to have the guidance and you want to have the support necessary, then it might be well worth your while. So regardless, you can take us up on that free coaching session, or that is the application process to join our elite lawyer program. So if either one, if you want to join the program or if you want to get a free coaching session, go to profitwithlaw.com/free coaching, profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. We'd love to see you in there. We'd love to see you book that free coaching call, get that experience, walk away really inspired and reinvigorated, and maybe perhaps you and I get to work together for the next 18 months after that. So that's really exciting. The last exciting piece of news or information is I am starting a inner circle performance mastermind. Now, what is a mastermind? So before we even go into, so I have like the 18-month elite coaching program. That program is a coaching program. It's where I sit in the coach seat and everyone else is in the room, and they can sit in the hot seat. We can have a discussion. We can help them work through their blind spots. A mastermind is different. A mastermind is where each person who joins the mastermind brings their unique skill set, their unique capabilities and abilities, their unique experiences. And each of them provides value to the other members with those unique experiences. So there's a give and a take. Now, the mastermind is going to be specifically for firm owners. You got to have a minimum of $1 million in revenue, and it's probably more for the firm owners in the $2-3 million range, just simply because of the price tag to join. So this is a $50,000 price tag, and it's going to be limited to 25 people. But if you want to be in a room with like-minded individuals, successful, highly successful law firm owners, and you want to see what they're doing, you want to understand how they're navigating different things, whether it's further growth of your firm, whether it's team leadership and development, whether it's preparing your firm for the next step. Maybe you want to transfer ownership to somebody else, you want to sell it, or maybe you want to plan for the next generation to take it over, or maybe you want to know what they're doing with all the money that their firm is creating, and you want ideas on how to invest that or put it away. Special tax strategies. So if this excites you, if this is something that's appealing to you, we will be meeting in person 4 times a year. And there's going to be content programming, guest speakers that come. And we're even thinking about hosting a retreat for your staff. So if this is something that you want to find out more about, it's by application only. We're not accepting everybody. It needs to be a right fit. We have to we have to evaluate you and make sure that you meet our criteria, and likewise, we want to make sure that you are all in on us. So if this is something that's intriguing to you, you want more information, it's going to be application only, but you can request information, which will then lead to my team sending you details and the application process. You can go to profitwithlaw.com/inner circle, profitwithlaw.com/inner circle, and just put in your details there. We're just going to ask for some basic contact info and also a confirmation that you're aware that it's a $50,000 investment and that you are ready to make that investment should you decide that it works for you and should we allow you in. So those are some really exciting things that are happening here, and but you want to know what's going on. You want to know who almost died, right? So let's get into that. So you go to profitwithlaw.com/annual planning, and that event is kicking off on December 20th at 12 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully we'll see you there. Okay, here's the story. So it all starts with back in April time or so last year. Part of the story starts earlier than that. So my wife and I are pregnant with our third. So it's my 6th child. It's our 3rd child together. And I decide that my 2 kids are going to be going to day camp locally, and it's going to be in person. It's exciting. We're going back to some normalcy. And kids grow up way too quick. I've got older kids. I have a 22, 20, and 19-year-old, and man, did their childhood move quickly. And my kids, the little ones, they're getting to experience growth now, and and it's not going to get repeated. The stages they go through, it's not going to happen again. So I decided that I wanted to experience some of their day camp in the summer by direct visualization. I wanted to watch them enjoy camp. So I went and with my team, we cleared our promotion calendar for the entire summer. We basically just supported our coaching clients and nothing else. The rest of my team basically worked on stuff that needed to happen after the summer. And we got going. I got a job at the day camp and took the summer off. I showed up for my coaching clients, but that is basically it. I didn't do any speaking engagements. I didn't do any podcast guest recording, none of that. So the plan was that after the summer, we're going to come back in September and we're going to go full force into planning for the Law Firm Growth Summit. And we're also, we sell seats into our 18-month elite coaching program through these free coaching sessions. So I was also going to reopen my calendar to some of these free coaching sessions. So September comes, and guess what? there's like a whole bunch of holidays. There's Jewish holidays, and our local school system started late. So Labor Day was late. I think Labor Day was like September 7th, and then there was Rosh Hashanah was that same week, or the following week. Normally, the school starts the Wednesday after Labor Day, and here that week had 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So the school decided that they're going to start the following Monday. So they didn't start school until like the second week in September. So we're already like halfway through the month, and my kids are home. And then there's a bunch of other Jewish holidays. They're home for those. They're not home for those, but there's just not a lot of work happening. So basically, the month of September, leading almost up to the end, was very unproductive as far as I'm concerned with where we're going in our business. Well, my wife, who is pregnant now, right? We got diagnosed with placenta previa. So for those of you who don't know, and if this is too much detail for you, I apologize. You could turn off the episode, come back, listen to a different one. Placenta previa is where the placenta, which nurtures the baby and carries all of the blood, but it connects the blood vessels of the mom to the blood vessels of the baby. The placenta was laying at the bottom, so basically above the cervix, and it blocks the exit for the baby to leave. Now, with placenta previa, they say that the placenta can move, so they don't plan to for a C-section until later on in the pregnancy, maybe 35 weeks, 36 weeks or so, and then they basically decide to go ahead and give you a C-section if it doesn't move. Well, there's another complication that can happen, and my wife experienced it. So the first time was the beginning of September. She had a little bleeding, and the doctor said, she went to the hospital. They evaluated her, monitored her for overnight, and then they sent her home. Basically, the doctor was like, bleeding can be common with this condition, with placenta previa, and, just go home and let us know if it happens again. So a few weeks went by, and it didn't happen again until September 25th. And on September 25th, she started bleeding again. We called the doctor, and the doctor basically told us to go. So we live in Rockland County, which is a suburb of New York City. Told us to go to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in Manhattan. And when we questioned why, why Columbia? Like, you don't go to Columbia. Why would you send me to a hospital that you don't go to? The doctor said, well, you're 29 weeks pregnant, and the hospitals locally can't handle a 29-week baby that's delivered. And we're like, well, we're not delivering. Okay, we'll listen to you. We'll go to the hospital there. So we took the kids to a friend. We got into the car. We drove to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. And this is where it got interesting, right? Because the first doctor that saw us said, oh, you're for sure going to be here for a few days. We're going to keep you for 72 hours. We're going to monitor you. And once she got admitted, so the way that it works is a doctor sees you in like a triage area, and then when you get admitted, you're assigned a different team of doctors. So once we got admitted, the next team of doctors came to see my wife. And they said, well, you're going to be here at least a week because we want to see you go an entire week without bleeding before we let you go. At that point, we still thought, okay, after a week, we're going to go home. We still have another, 11, 12 weeks to this pregnancy. We're going to go home and everything's going to be fine. Well, as the week progressed, they kept, depending on who the practitioner was, some of them, somebody came in and said, oh, you're not going to leave until this baby's born. And we're like, well, what are you talking about? And they started to say things like, well, you need to be close to the operating room. And what was interesting is that, so she ended up having another bleeding episode, and it was less than a week. So I think it was like 5 or 6 days. And she had another bleeding episode. And so they have a unit that's like the active labor and delivery high risk area. And then they have an antepartum unit, which is for women who are there for long periods of time. They're on bed rest for various reasons. A lot of them are there because their amniotic fluid the amniotic sac ruptured early, so they have to be very carefully monitored for infection and for the amount of fluid in the amniotic sac. So they get regular ultrasounds, things like that. So they have an entire unit for women like this. So my wife was on this antepartum unit, and when she was bleeding, they moved us to the high risk side. And when we asked, like, why do we have to move? Like, why can't you just treat her in this room, right? It's literally on the same floor. It's like the other, it's around a couple of corners and a couple of doors. And what they said was, well, because you need to be closer to the operating room. Like, those extra 20 feet of moving you out of here into there would make the difference for you. And it was still, we still weren't wrapping our heads around the severity of the situation, but it started to become clear that this is not a matter that you want to play games with. Now, at the same time that we thought, we were having conversations about just leaving against medical advice. Like, why do we need to sit there? Nothing's happening. We'll just go home, and, if she starts bleeding again, we'll go to the hospital. And many of you know that I'm also a paramedic. It's a hobby of mine. I do one steady shift at night every Thursday night. But besides for that, I'm in the community working as a paramedic. So I don't know how it came up, because we don't usually discuss calls, and I didn't actually talk to the provider who was on this call, but I was talking to the scheduling person, and she brought up this story. And she told me that one of my coworkers had a call where he responded to a situation where a pregnant woman had a complete placental abruption, where the placenta separates from the uterus, and this happened in the field. So they didn't know what it was, but they had a presentation of a large vaginal bleed. And they rushed her to the hospital, and they gave her IV fluids. They did everything that they could to try to maintain her blood pressure and get her there. Unfortunately, she went into cardiac arrest en route to the hospital. And when they got to the emergency room, the doctors did an emergency C-section right there in the ER with her still on the ambulance stretcher. Like, they didn't even move her because they wanted to try to save this baby. Unfortunately, it was too late for the baby as well, because the baby had been cut off from the oxygen supply for too long, and both mom and baby died. Now, this is a horrendous, horrible story, but I share it because this story was told to me right at the same time that we are discussing about leaving the hospital, against medical advice. And it really put us in our place. I turned to my wife and I said, I don't think we should mess with this. If they're so worried about how close you are to the operating room here in the hospital, clearly it happens that somebody with your condition has a massive bleed at some point, and they need to get that baby out as fast as possible to save you and the baby. So I don't want to have to drive an hour to the hospital from where we are and take that risk. And essentially that's what happened. And we ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks, and she had recurrent bleeds. It kept happening. And eventually there was one that just wouldn't stop. It wasn't a hemorrhage, but it just wouldn't stop bleeding. And we had a C-section, and it was 32 weeks into the pregnancy. So he was born 8 weeks early. And when they first pulled him out, it was pretty scary because I guess there was some piece of equipment that they used to get the baby to breathe that was broken. Like the piece of equipment was broken, so they rushed him out of the room somewhere else to work on him. And we had no idea what happened. So it was like 15 minutes until we got an update. So we were left to think like the worst. And then eventually they came back and said, no, he's fine. He had some trouble breathing initially. He first was put on CPAP, and then he came off of it that night. So he really wasn't on it for very long. But on October 18th, our son, Derek Matthew, was born, and he weighed in at 4 pounds, 4 ounces. And then he stayed in the NICU for 3 weeks. He was just too little. He didn't have any real issues. He just was too little. He had to grow. He had to learn how to regulate his temperature. He had to consume enough feeds by bottle because there's no tube to feed him through at home. In the NICU, they just put a tube in his nose and feed him through it. So basically, it was this, 3 weeks in the hospital before he was born, then 3 weeks in the hospital after he was born. And it was about a week into this process where I suddenly realized, this could go, his due date was December 10th. We could be in the hospital all the way until December. And I have no way of making sales. I have no way of bringing in the next round of coaching clients. And that was a little scary to me because my whole business revolves around this, the new people coming into our world, and I don't have a mechanism to bring them in. And that's when I realized, I have a coach of my own. And in a coaching conversation, we talked through why I don't have somebody else having these initial free coaching conversations. And I shared that I had this belief that if somebody was going to invest in me and invest in my coaching, they had to experience me as a coach in that sales process. And the truth is that doesn't need to be the case. There's plenty of coaching organizations out there that have salespeople, or they have coaches that work in their organization, and the owner or the main coach or the main head honcho or whatever you want to call it isn't necessarily coaching everybody and isn't necessarily the only person providing support to the clients. And when I worked through that, it then became apparent to me that I needed to put into place a team of coaches to have these initial coaching conversations with people and help them navigate whether they're a right fit for us and whether we're a right fit for them, and help bring them into our world. And I have a relationship with a couple of people that had started a agency that does exactly that, and we started to have conversations, and I hired them, and I shared with them exactly how I handle that initial coaching session. What are the questions that I ask? How do I work through issues that come up? And basically onboarded them, trained them, and put them into place. And I share this with you. Interestingly, at the beginning of this episode, I told you, come and join us as free coaching session. And guess what? You're going to get one of those coaches on that free coaching session. I share this with you not to say they don't know what they're doing. They definitely do. They're amazing at what they do. As a matter of fact, they do a better job than I was doing with closing sales, bringing people into my world. But I'm sharing this whole story with you because sometimes it takes a extreme situation. It takes our backs being up against the wall to take a next step in our business that we kind of knew we needed to take, but we had certain beliefs in place, or we had certain hesitations in place that we did not allow that to happen. And in my case, and this is not the same for everybody, but in my case, it was, I can't have anybody else do my sales because our sales happen through this coaching process, and that has to be me. And it clearly didn't have to be me. I was holding on to a belief that I didn't need to hold on to. And as soon as I let go of that belief and I embraced this new process, it opened up a whole new world of possibility in how many more people I could serve, because I was wasting so much of my time on these initial coaching calls to bring people into my world. The whole reason I have a group coaching program is because I want to serve many people. I don't want to spend time one-on-one. And here I was doing that in this initial coaching call. Wasn't a good use of my time, and it wasn't a good decision as a CEO to make. So I share this with you because I think that you can take my experience and you can do a little introspection into your own world and look at your business and say, what is something that I have been holding on to, that I have been owning, that I have not wanted to delegate to somebody else because I felt like it needed to be me? And I can tell you that whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's your social media, whether it's your client interaction that you're doing or the legal work that you're doing, none of that has to be you. None of it. I mean, look at the look at the larger law firms, right? Is the managing partner or the main partner, are they handling the any of that stuff? No, because at some point you have to delegate that to somebody else if that's where you're going in your growth. Now, not everybody wants a firm that large, so maybe it does make sense for you to hold on to some things. But if you're trying to grow your practice and you're trying to get to, a certain size, you got to look at the end result. You got to look at, let's say you're trying to get your firm to $3 million in revenue, right? Well, if you look at your average billing per client, let's say it's $20,000. So I'm going to take a calculator. I'm going to put 3 million divided by 20,000, right? 150 clients you need to serve annually to generate $3 million on an average revenue of $20,000 per client. So if you're serving 150 clients, you got to look at your entire picture and say, well, if I am a $3 million law firm serving 150 clients, what personnel need to be in place in order for that to happen? Could my marketing still be handled by a marketing agency, or does that need to be in-house? Is my social media being handled by a social media person? What about my sales process? What about the legal work, paralegals, lawyers? How many of all of those do I need to push this many people through? And depending on the area of law that you're practicing in, 150 doesn't mean anything unless you know what we're talking about. But let's say that you can, let's say an attorney can handle an average of 10 cases a month, and these cases last 6 months long, right? So you're talking about having 75 active cases at any given moment. And so now you know that you need to have 7 or 8 attorneys on staff for that $3 million firm. Now, I did that really quick. I made up the numbers. Probably for a $3 million firm, you don't need 7 attorneys. You probably can have less than that. But there's the example. But I share this with you because if you look at the end picture, the end result, if you paint that picture first and you see what that looks like, and then look at where you are right now and look at the gaps between the two, you will start to identify the pieces that you've been holding on to that really don't even belong in your world. For me, another great example is a social media person, right? I desperately have to hire a social media manager. There's so much more that we could be doing on social media, and it's not even that I'm holding on to it. I don't do it. I have one of our current staff members does some basic social media posting, but we don't have an overarching social media strategy. Now, that's part of stepping into the growth of it, right? Up until now, a lot of our marketing was done through collaboration, through events, things like that. But there's so much more value we can provide, and so many more people we could bring in if we just have a cohesive social media strategy. So you have to look at your own world, your own efforts, and see where are you at, where are the gaps, what's missing, and start to identify those. And then start to fill those seats. Start to bring those people on. If you don't march to the beat of the drum of where you want to be, you're going to stay stuck with where you are. And I think that is like the biggest takeaway from this whole story is you need to be able to take those leaps. You need to be able to bring on the right people, whether it's hire people in-house or whether it's bring in contractors or outside agencies or whatever it is to handle these different things. You need to be willing to invest in that. You need to be willing to bring them on, but you also need to be willing to delegate these things off of your plate. You need to be willing to hand them off to somebody else. So we had a rough go at this pregnancy and the first few weeks of our son's life, but now we're right next to his due date. He's about to be officially here, even though he's 8 weeks old. He just hit 7 pounds. I mean, he's growing nicely. He's doing everything he's supposed to do. And, it's an incredible, beautiful gift that we have. But we look at the experience that we had, and there's so many lessons to be learned. And I'm just sharing one of them with you. There's plenty more. Like we can talk about how life is too short, or you need to plan for the possibility that you might have to disappear from your office for 3 or 4 weeks or 5 or 6 weeks. Right? You never know what life's going to throw at you. Are you ready? Have you prepared your staff in a way that they can operate on their own, that they don't necessarily need you there? That's a huge one, right? Because my staff basically was operating on their own from June all the way until a couple of weeks ago. They were running their own team meetings. They were executing on projects. I had very little interaction with them through this whole process. I was really focused on my wife, and mind you, I had two little kids at home, right? So we were navigating, going back and forth between my wife and the kids, and trying to be in both places at the same time. The business totally took a back seat, which is what it should do. But if you're not ready to do that and life throws you a lemon, what are you going to do? So there's a lot more that we can dive into. But I'm going to leave it at this. It's first episode back. I don't want to make it a 2-hour episode. And I wanted to share the story. Well, first of all, because stories are entertaining, and I'm sure that everybody enjoyed listening to it, but also because, you can gain from my experience, and I'm really excited to be able to share that with you. So to recap what I brought up at the beginning of the episode, if you want to plan your best year ever for 2022, join us for 4 days, December 20th to the 23rd, 12 o'clock p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to have, I think it's 8 of us are going to be talking to you over the course of 4 days on what's working now in marketing, how to strategically perform your sales or intake process in a way that's going to really move the needle for your business, how to grow your team, how to manage and lead your team. Really, we're looking for, this is like the sniper approach to your best year ever in 2022. We're not putting together a 3-day law firm growth summit. We're putting together 4 to 6 hours of content where you're going to walk away knowing exactly what you need to do come January. So join us, profitwithlaw.com/annual planning, profitwithlaw.com/annual planning. Love to see you there. If you'd like to take a step further and you'd like to explore working with us for 18 months in our elite lawyer coaching program, definitely book a free coaching call with one of our coaches at profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. And lastly, if you're already in the multi-million dollar revenue arena, then and you're interested in collaborating in a mastermind with other multi-million dollar revenue law firm owners, then head over to profitwithlaw.com/inner circle. Let us know you're interested. My team will get in touch with you. We'll get an application filled out. We'll give you more details on the program, and we'd love to see you in there. So, folks, welcome back to me, but you're going to hear a ton more from me. We're going to take that event, the annual planning event, and we're going to also publish it here on the podcast. So if you miss any of it, it'll be here for your audio consumption. However, their video broadcasts. There's going to be slides. There's going to be stuff like that. So definitely want to sign up for it and join us there as much as you can. And if this is your first time listening to this podcast, The Prophet of the Law, and you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. This way you'll be notified every time we release a new episode. We're here twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday. Folks, can't wait to see you on Thursday. Got another great interview coming your way. Take care. That's it for this week's episode of Prophet with Law. If you have enjoyed the show, please consider sharing it with at least one person. Imagine how many lives we can change if we each shared this episode. Another way to share the episode is on social media. We appreciate your support and look forward to you joining us again next week.